Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today I'm Paula Moore. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Sean.
I'm glad to have you. You have a nice book out, Glitter and Grit, and actually the greater as a creative. So that's what we're talking about. You've been in the music industry for pretty much your whole life, and you share your experiences and your tips, but you also do it in a creative way that it's not the normal behind the scenes music book. Fun stories, a lot of life examples. So it's not preachy. It's more as, you can learn from what I have, and kind of the fun is the best way to learn. What is your title right now? Like, what are you right now as your job and your company doing? Like, what are you doing right now?
Well, I've just during the pandemic, I launched my 8th startup, and we're focused around A&R innovation. A lot of new research discovery tools that I'm developing that are bespoke to my company. I relaunched my A&R Scout training program. I launched a new program that complements it that's all about A&R marketing. So we have global participants in both of those programs learning how to do A&R and A&R marketing. And I serve a bunch of clients with discovery research on emerging talent of all kinds. That's in a nutshell what we're doing right now. And I'm about to roll out a Web3 platform that is going to disrupt the independent distribution space.
Oh, really? Good. As you stated in the book, you're really in on how good and how equitable the internet can be to begin with talent. And it feels like a lot of the music industry wasn't on board with that. And this is surprising because
not when I was starting out, for sure.
No, I mean, just like anything else, it's just like when a record label picks out an artist, by the time they're picking out the next artist, they're copying the other artists that were successful. It's not really take chances anymore. So, the internet was a brand new thing, and you had a lot of good ideas. And you also struggled with some people who were trying to take your ideas, and being a woman was also a challenge for you. Has it gotten a little bit better?
As far as being a female executive, has it gotten better?
I think it's the past couple of years it's changed, but I always just wonder, there's still a lot of old soldiers in those positions still.
I do think a lot of from the top down, it has changed quite a bit. I think there's a lot more mutual respect in the industry amongst genders. And I think we're seeing not a seismic shift, but a shift in female leadership positions being more available. But I do still think that, look, we're in a creative business. It's very much centralized around a lifestyle that most creatives have, is this, music and culture lifestyle that bleeds into work. So, there are those blurry lines that are always going to exist, I think, in the music business, and not so much affecting the executives, but the younger, entry level to junior executives who go out a lot and probably still are on the party scene a little bit. When you're first getting into the music industry, there's a lot more of that. So I think, those young women are still experiencing, quite a difference in how their careers are getting started or getting off to the races compared to their male counterparts. I think there's still some work that has to be done on the entry to mid-level female and male executives.
Well, yeah, I'd imagine it wouldn't change overnight. And of course, everyone's going to say things are different.
Right.
But if they're, no one's going to say, well, no, we're not doing it. We're not changing. Clearly the world's a little more open. What would your advice be for females coming in now?
I think, obviously protecting what I call your creative house and being very mindful of how open you are to new relationships, and formulating those relationships, have those boundaries, know exactly, your value, your worth, and what you want out of any given relationship. I think is really, it's an important factor now, as you're networking and building your network to determine who those A players are, who those B, C, D players are, and who you're spending your time on, and what value you're bringing to them, but is also reciprocated to you.
Now, in the book, you've actually, you've done like, so this is your 8th startup. You've done a lot of startups. Some have done well. Some have had challenges and not done well. Some of them not your fault. It's just other people have sabotaged them or blown them apart. Or they fallen apart.
Right.
But to your own point, you're willing to just, put it all out there every single time, to grow and to keep working on it, which is scary for a lot of people. There's a certain comfort level that people won't do, And early on, you started, you're not only were you just a businesswoman in the music world, you're also a mom, and a wife, and having a young family is hard to have a regular 9-to-5 job. And to me, being a parent, like especially reading with the times in the early years for you, really felt like what a challenge to the dynamic it must have been, because you had 2 kids, right? You had 2 small young kids.
Yeah, I had 2. Yeah, as I was building my career and working hard to be an executive in the music industry with staying power, which is not an easy feat, especially as a female executive that was doing something, out of the boundaries of what was normally acceptable in A&R.
Right.
And I had 2 small kids at home, and I was also bi-coastal. I was in New York every couple of weeks, and then also live in Santa Monica but worked in Burbank. So that's almost like having to go to New York every day.
Right, might just be another country. And what you need to realize is when you were doing this was not when we had Zoom, when you could do these meetings and everything was so easy. I mean, God, can you imagine this now?
Oh my God.
No one should know now.
Grateful. Not that I'm grateful that we had a pandemic and it's, so much horrible, sadness and loss of life happened during the pandemic. But from a business standpoint, it made people that I interact with on a regular basis, I think, show me more respect. Before the pandemic, I always had that kind of like side eye, like, oh, you work from your house, like you're not,
it's hard. It's almost hard. It's almost harder, actually.
Yeah, but I love it. And I love the fact that what happened was it enabled us to have these types of one-on-one meetings or group meetings without me having to drive and, park and go into the office. So it's been fantastic for me to have people see the value of remote work.
Yeah. It's really, that's actually on a side note, it's really changed the work environment to begin with, and obviously affect the music world. Whereas most places are turning to work from home, and then the offices now are being downsized, or becoming more of a creative center. So creative, not only music. This book actually can actually help you in other careers. It doesn't have to just be music. It kind of gives you a perspective, and it talks in a way where it talks about your house, getting your house in order, how to take care of things, and it makes it very black and white, so you can relate it to what you're doing. It just happens to be music. It has some really great music stories, and so it's fun, and I can relate to it. But being able to do this now, so you had you really couldn't use the internet for talking to people. You're flying, you're a female in a male-dominated industry, boys club. You had a lot of challenges, and then just trying to be a mom, to be there for your kids and your husband, which you also talk about the struggles you had in your relationship, because of that, not just because of that, but I'm saying, but not being around. Not enough of you for all those hours.
Absolutely. Yeah. The long hours in the music industry, and a lot of people, I think, when you think about creative professionals in general, you don't realize how consuming it is of your life to be a creative professional until things start to go south, right? And you're like, wow, I just spent all this time on this, and it just, crumbled the rest of my life because I was trying to build a creative career. And it takes a lot to be a creative professional, a lot more than people know.
And the other thing I want to point out is, because being a male, it was more acceptable for a guy to be working 80 hours a week, flying and jet setting. But it was also kind of a no-no for a female to be doing that. And it's still just breaking away from that now. It was very taboo,
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I think it was harder for my generation. I think, we're probably close in age.
Yeah, I'm 51.
Yeah. So my generation of female creatives, it wasn't very acceptable, it wasn't understood. I'll tell you that. It was largely misunderstood, what we were doing, what I was doing in particular, or my female counterparts. It was hard to get our male counterparts to accept that we were doing a job, and not just, honestly, like, we came from the era in music where women who were around music were considered groupies, and not considered creative professionals.
I remember early on my career, I actually interned for some record labels and stuff, and I was in school for music business, and just seeing it full on, females to males on any level, was such a struggle. And you had to be like almost like a single woman with like no anything, and you were still taking on the chin every day to move forward.
Yep.
And I couldn't imagine doing PR. I was doing promo stuff like with Zoom nowadays, and the way you can contact people and stuff. It was like hours at the photocopier. You know what I'm talking about?
Totally.
Just to get all your flyers together to either send them out or put the promo kits, right? All the mail outs, the promo kits, Now it's just an email, and you got some attachments, and you got a SoundCloud or a Bandcamp or a Dropbox.
My God. I know it. Everyone's got it so much easier these days.
But like, no one realizes that. They're like, yeah, I'll send it to you, media thing. And I'm like, oh, I got media. But I remember packing them. So the whole thing, that was a lot. But to that point, it still wasn't, I could see back then it was even equal then, So the challenge was there. But you made huge strides in music, and you've had some really great jobs, and you've worked with some really great people.
I have.
So, and the important thing is you actually talk about friendships, betrayal, and how it's knocked you down, but then to take that, what you've learned, and try to roll it back into the next piece of your career and start again. So that's the best takeaway for me, is like, you just can't stop. You just got to keep working at what you want. And how important is it? Because, the feeling I get from you is so important to you. You will actually just blow up everything. In fact, I think you end up moving to a smaller place because you lost everything, but it was so important to start over, to keep what you're doing at all costs, And I think that's what draws the line between people really being successful, or just being lucky sometimes. But I'm saying, but being professionally successful is you got to be really to put it on the line and keep working at it. It doesn't just come easy,
Yeah. I mean, I think being a risk taker my entire career has served me well most times, but then it's also done harm to my well-being at some points, like putting myself out there and trying to innovate and build things that and drive new endeavors to help make change in the industry, make room for other creative professionals that have never had an opportunity to do what I do, or a way to get their foot in the door. Like that takes some real belief in myself. And then when I would come face to face with people that didn't believe in what I was doing so frequently, until I was finally winning at it, that was hard on me. And of course, I'm human. There were many times where I just wanted to throw in the towel and give up and give in to the naysayers, or or the non-believers. But I believed in what I was doing. I've always believed in, my core focus has been, how can I be of service to creatives that across the board, whether it's artists of all kinds, music artists primarily, but I've worked with all types of artists and helped open doors for them, including Shepard Fairey and, several other key players in music and lifestyle and culture. But more importantly, opening doors for people that, once I got my foot in the door in the music industry and had respect and built all of that up for myself, I wanted to be that bridge for other people like me that don't have those relationships yet. I wanted to be that conduit. So that's really what I think kept me motivated and made me not give up to really be there for the future me's, right? Like
Right.
male or female, you know, whoever wants to try to build a creative career, I wanted to be a part of that.
Well, I think, you know, looking back, if I had seen that book early on, it would have been a really good book to know and read. I think it'd be a good, if anybody in the music industry is a good, almost like a college book to read. There's two things I got out of the book that really stuck out for me is A, and this is a positive, but most of us, one of our most, sometimes our best traits are also our worst traits. And I think that you're so open and kind. I think they also hurt you at times.
Oh my God.
I read the book. I'm like, no, don't do it again. Don't trust them. Like, you know, like, oh, the page turner. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how don't trust them again. Like, make some rules or something.
Yeah.
But because that, but that also made you the person that also kept going. And if you weren't that person, so you know what I'm saying, it is definitely a yin and yang thing. Like, you know, they gave it back to you for trusting them, but that also helped you grow further too.
Yeah.
If you're just totally negative and in, you probably would have inched along and maybe not been where you are because you've been really tight about moving forward and not open to people, and people appreciate that and can work with you. That's your strength. But then you also welcoming other people, giving the same chance you didn't have, trusting somebody. You know, obviously, you know, some people hurt you and took advantage of that. You know, which is pretty unknown in the music business.
Sure.
Yeah, taking advantage of you.
But I think with what I do and how I operate as a creative professional and the type of work and the type of initiatives that I create, I'm pushing boundaries always. So I have to be more open than the average executive in the music industry. I wish I could, Sean, like set up those boundaries, but at the same time, like I have to create in a really open way so that I can make those strides forward, which means I have to trust people blindly.
Right, and it's not a judgment. It's not a judgment by any means. It's me. I know. You're looking from the aerial view of looking at it, saying, I'm like, I don't know what I would do. Like, I can't be like, I would have done this. Like, I'm like watching and going, geez, you see how that happens. But then if she wasn't this person, she would have even gotten there to even do that. So like, there really is no solution. I'm just like commenting on the push pull of that. It really kind of, you know, was definitely a challenge.
It was challenging. It's been a wild ride. And like you said, like I look back as I was writing the book and reliving those stories, which was, you know, somewhat painful.
It makes you very vulnerable to put it out there. It's gotta be feel very weird. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, this is you writing all your things or emotions or family things or things with your husband or whatever. And, you know, how sad or whatever you scared you felt is like that the big nightmare we have of waking up and we're in front of our class and our dreams and our underwear reading a book report or something. It's like that. Right. There you go. That's it. That's what it feels like to me, because you're like it's all out there, right?
Yeah.
And which is brave, you know, and it probably took a lot to get through. You probably feel good too on some level to kind of like you know, like you're shedding some skin, kind of moving forward once you put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that actually didn't happen to me. And I think that, you know, some people close to me felt that I was writing it, in a way to go through and be cathartic and, you know, get it out there. But really that's not where it came from. Honestly, Sean, I knew I was going to include a lot of the business stories, somehow in the book, but the book started before the pandemic, and it was all about my creative house philosophy. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until almost at the end when I brought in my two wonderful editors that I realized I needed to start each chapter with a true story about what I faced while I was developing my creative house philosophy and how to protect myself in different ways based on, you know, the trials and tribulations of my life. Right. So I never set out to write a you know, behind the scenes music industry book per se, but it kind of, you know, turned out a little bit like that, but more about the behind the scenes of a female entrepreneur / executive that had to figure everything out for myself, you know, and part of that was developing this kind of self empowerment piece is what I prefer to call it than self-help or self-improvement, but to figure out how to continue to empower myself and build something that worked for me and served me well in my day-to-day endeavors.
Right. And to me, it doesn't feel like a manual. It's like you're getting it out there. I mean, it feel good. Like you kind of put everything in order. It's another thing you put together, you put out there to help keep building off of, it's, yeah, I don't think it's as a self-help, because I think what's really good is in a lot of books, even if, like What Color's Your Parachute, that type of genre of stuff. And it's not a dig towards them. It's generic. And you remember reading those books, it was good because there's nothing. But when you read them, like, it's easy to say, send out 10 of these a day. And every day from 8 to 4, you're like, yeah, it's great for some people, but everyone's not the same. And to be like, what color's your parachute, and be creative? Well, then it really isn't. Because it's creative, there's no color for your parachute because everybody's different. So it's kind of hard to do that. And this is you showing examples of a real person saying, yeah, I had a fight with my husband and this was struggling. And I was, crying, I would upset. And then I had to go and take it. This guy's bullying me, but I still went through it. It's real stuff.
Yeah.
And that's more tangible for somebody, to, oh, okay, I get it. It's not always gonna be easy. I'm not gonna be, doing a Jerry Maguire free falling song, driving down the road like this, high five. It's not like that at all. Very rarely, in fact. And usually when it happens, there's no one around to high five you for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, like, hi, oh. And then, you know what I mean? Sometimes your biggest successes are just you're alone because nobody gets the battle you did to get there. And some of the biggest success is actually the journey to get to that point. Because once you're there, you're like, there really is no euphoric resting place.
Right.
And that's part of the process. And if people don't understand that, I think, and maybe even more generationally, people think there's like always like a big payoff. And I feel like there's a lot of the journey in the book, not so much of the payoff. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, I think, and I do think the journey as a creative professional is truly the ultimate win, that you have staying power and then you continue to be creative and reinvent yourself, or, rework your creative house like I have many, many times over. I think that is the win for me. But, also you're right. Like a lot of my biggest wins, I've been alone when the result actually happened, but collaborative all the way through to that result. And I think that those are the memories that you really cherish.
But even with family, you're like, yeah, and they're like, yeah, it's great. We see it from the outside. You're like, no, you don't understand. Like there's this, you're very alone in some of these wins in the music world because nobody really gets all the different angles of the minutia, all the moving parts to get there. And to me, like, I think I look back at some of my best moments in life are the parts of getting to that point of something I want to achieve. It's almost looking back, like that was fun. Like I was focused on that. I was doing it. Those are the best moments. And you got there, you're like, all right, I'm onto something new again. Okay, let's discount it at that point because you're there. I did it. I was new,
Exactly.
So moving forward, like, where do you think you'd like to see this book go? Like to go foothold. Like, where do you think would be a best served for people? Whether it be, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, sorry.
There are a couple of reasons why I wrote the book. One is, I've done a lot of really important things in my career to open doors, especially for young women and just entry level creatives. I've done a lot of things that also, one thing in particular that really impacted the future of A&R in the music business. And I never took care of my creativity in a way where I owned those things. Like even the killers that are mentioned in my book, like for years, there were always people, saying, oh, well, anybody can say that they discovered a band or they discovered this band or they were the reason why their career started. But it just so happens that, thank goodness, they kept that the pay stub of their first check that has my name on it. And I was like, okay, so I really can tell you and claim it, I think I wrote the book also to protect myself and the legacy of things that I've done. I didn't do that before. And it's not like, Sean, it wasn't like I could go write a 20-year celebratory press release and be like, hey, I did this over 20 years and, get media coverage. So I was like, well, I guess it's going in the book. So
I think a book like this would be good. I'm sorry. I think like in a lot of libraries, I think this would be a good book, like in like school libraries and college libraries, Oh,
I love that. I'd love that. We're just getting started with the book. I think, one of the things I'm going to do is in the fall, I don't know if you know this, a lot of people don't know this, but music business undergraduate degrees are a highly sought after track at over 300 colleges and universities. So I'm going to be going on a book tour and visiting all of those music business programs. And hopefully, that's something that can be worked into a workshop or part of the curriculum at some of these schools. So that's one thing that I'm going to try to do, is get it in the hands of as many, college students that are attending music business programs now, so that at least they have some insight of what they're in for.
Well, that's the thing is, I mean, I enjoyed it as a read on what I've gone through and things in my life, but what would be the most impactful would be younger people in high school, college age, that are starting out in any field, good on like any kind of library. So I meant like as a launching pad for people, that's what I think.
I agree with you. I think that there are very few books that really describe what it takes to build a creative career, and using real world examples, real life experiences. I just haven't seen another book like that. And, I'm a researcher, so I did do a little research before I released the book. But also right now I'm recording the audiobook version, and I'll give you a little tidbit because you happen to be the first interview since we started the process. There's a little known category in the Grammys that is for audiobooks and spoken. It's the best spoken word album.
Yep.
So I have a Grammy Award winning producer producing my audiobook, hip hop producer. So he's very good at spoken word. And we're gonna be submitting for that Grammy category. And not only a little known category, but there are very few submissions apparently. So I think we have a good shot at getting the Grammy nod on this. But also I'm including a compilation of 12 to 15 emerging female artists that I've invited to have a song featured in the audiobook so I can help boost their careers. I mean, I always leverage everything I have to support artists. So this is one way I could say, hey, come put a song in the audiobook that is representative of how you felt about my book or how it impacted you. And then hopefully all these young female artists will get a Grammy nomination before they see any sort of success on their own.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah.
The other takeaway I got was on this whole thing was contacts, and how to somebody contacts people and be friendly with them, because it's so hard to not be like, feel like it's just, hey, call me. You know what I mean? To have contacts, you call them when you need them, to maintain contacts and have some kind of a friendship, but not, it's hard. The hard line of calling somebody friends nowadays is really hard. Yeah. Facebook ruined it for everybody. They're just friends. Right. But are you friends? But is it a friend somebody you do like you can hang out with? I mean, there's no like real official title for it. So you have contacts that you're friendly with. It's like, how do you draw the line where you're not overstepping the bounds on that contact? Like, how do you, it's a weird world to weave for a lot of people.
I think, with my network, I learned early on, and I still continue to operate this way consistently. I do not reach out to people just for chit chat, because if I don't have something of value to bring to them at the time, I really don't want to take their time, because I know how valuable time is, right? So I only reach out to people, in rotation every so often, but I do reach out to consistently to my contacts, 10 to 20 people a week with check-ins on things that they might find valuable. So I'm mindful of where my network's interests are and how I might align with them. And I always come with something to offer, not something to ask.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. Because I always wondered that myself, it's a weird world of just all kinds of business contacts. Like, how far do you go? And who, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it's just too much. People are just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be exhausting to balance all that. And I also feel like, every time they need something, they come to me, but that's it. You know what I mean? How do you maintain that professional, like, well, yeah, but if you need something from me, I'm here too. But maybe they just don't. It's one-sided, and you need to kind of
Yeah, I mean,
keep that
I
in
think
mind.
it's important to have a balance, right? That you're not always coming with an ask, that you're coming with a solution or something of interest. Like, hey, I thought you might like to know that, this thing just happened, and it
Right.
seems like it might fit into your interests, or whatever.
Mhm.
Like giving, I feel like I get more back.
Okay. Well, you're a lot more established too. A lot of people just have contacts. They don't really know what to do with them. It feels like
Right.
it's all over. So it's come with a high insight for people that are new and starting out to really work contacts without being over the top.
Yeah, I think for people that maybe aren't as established as I am, and don't get the responses generally when they reach out, I really do think it is like offering something up, and less about self promotion and more about, or self interest, and more about how to find something valuable to connect the dots with that person if you want to
Mhm.
build that relationship to the next level.
I agree. That's awesome. Any final thoughts on this for people in your book?
Um, no, I mean,
Advice? Anything?
read my book.
Read the book.
There's a lot of
it's just
gems in there. It's a page turner, I think. What do you
it
think,
is.
Sean?
I think there's a sequel. I love it. I read a lot of books, so I can be pretty critical, and I can't think of another book like this. I really
Oh,
can't. It's
thank you.
and I hate the title of the self help book can really just turn me off. Even if this is a good book, it just feels like gross. But
Yeah.
the story is interesting. It's almost like just three different types of books into it, all kind of put together.
Hmm.
You're not being lectured. There's a story. There's some music in it. You talk about music. No, excuse me. Parts of the music industry, notable people in the music industry. You get your personal stuff, and then the creative part of self help, or how
Hmm.
to build yourself through this journey, like a manuscript, all
Hmm.
together as one thing. So it's really interesting. It's something like people have read. It's a fun read. You know,
Yeah.
it
Thank
just
you.
stressed me out a little bit.
Yeah,
Some of the
I really did try
struggles
to
you
be
had.
different, right? Like I didn't want to put all of myself into something that didn't feel like it was kind of unique and different, because that's kind of my style.
I like it. I'd like to see a sequel when you dig in a little more into some of your A&R stuff too. I like
Yeah.
that. I like that a lot. I could see myself reading a double-sized book of all A&R stuff myself. But that's just
Well,
me.
and I do intend to. I want this to turn into a series of books for sure. And I did kind of keep it short, honestly, Sean, because I didn't want people to be like, oh, she wrote a book, or it's all about herself. Like I wanted it to feel like a quick read, a good read, a fulfilling read, and a pretty straightforward. Like, this is what I've done, and this is how I did it. So that's really how I wanted to kick it off. But yeah, I want to get more in depth on some stuff on the next one for sure.
Here's the thing. It's like a good album.
Oh,
It's got all the good songs in it, but you didn't put more than you needed in it. So you're like, oh wow, that 40 minutes went by fast because it's all good. And then the next thing you need to do is going to be you need like a double album now to go back into the
right.
details for the rest of us, because that's like a launching pad for you. You know what I'm saying? You just put the first, and it's very, it's got everything. It's not like an easy read. Like it's not like basic words, but it's a good fun read. We don't realize that you just kind of keep sitting and you want to keep finishing it. That's a fun read, you know. So
Thanks. I really appreciate
I
that.
enjoyed it, and the links for your book and stuff will be underneath the show on the podcast and on the
Cool.
YouTube channel, so people can go right to it, order it, and it's been
Um,
awesome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Sean. I appreciate it.
And my pleasure.